In many relationships, there exists an archetype of the smiling man, the kind of man who believes that his relentless efforts to please and accommodate a woman are what make him a good partner. He sacrifices his own wants and desires, constantly trying to adjust his behavior to meet her expectations. This man feels he is demonstrating maturity and patience, thinking that these qualities will ultimately make him more attractive. However, the reality is often the opposite. While his actions might be well-intentioned, they inadvertently lead to a diminishing attraction. When a man constantly bends over backward to meet a woman's needs, without maintaining a sense of his own identity or assertiveness, he becomes predictable and less exciting. This self-sacrifice, although seemingly noble, often strips away the mystery and challenge that are critical for maintaining the dynamic attraction in a relationship. This behavior stems from a common misconception that kindness, patience, and constant availability are what women truly desire. Yet, in reality, these qualities alone fail to inspire the deep instinctual attraction that women are biologically drawn to. Women are often subconsciously attracted to men who exude strength, leadership, and confidence, traits that do not come from constant self-sacrifice, but from a man who knows his worth and does not seek validation through endless accommodation. In this way, the smiling man becomes more of a provider of comfort than a partner who sparks desire. His need to please, although coming from a place of care, can often result in a loss of polarity, the very element that makes a relationship exciting and compelling. Instead of being seen as a strong partner, he can become an emotional crutch, and the attraction fades. In many relationships, there exists an archetype of the smiling man, the kind of man who believes that his relentless efforts to please and accommodate a woman are what make him a good partner. He sacrifices his own wants and desires, constantly trying to adjust his behavior to meet her expectations. This man feels he is demonstrating maturity and patience, thinking that these qualities will ultimately make him more attractive. However, the reality is often the opposite. While his actions might be well-intentioned, they inadvertently lead to a diminishing attraction. When a man constantly bends over backward to meet a woman's needs without maintaining a sense of his own identity or assertiveness, he becomes predictable and less exciting. This self-sacrifice, although seemingly noble, often strips away the mystery and challenge that are critical for maintaining the dynamic attraction in a relationship. This behavior stems from a common misconception that kindness, patience, and constant availability are what women truly desire. Yet in reality, these qualities alone fail to inspire the deep, instinctual attraction that women are biologically drawn to. Women are often subconsciously attracted to men who exude strength, leadership, and confidence, traits that do not come from constant self-sacrifice, but from a man who knows his worth and does not seek validation through endless accommodation. In this way, the smiling man becomes more of a provider of comfort than a partner who sparks desire. His need to please, although coming from a place of care, can often result in a loss of polarity, the very element that makes a relationship exciting and compelling. Instead of being seen as a strong partner, he can become an emotional crutch, and the attraction fades. The confusion men often face in relationships stems from the paradox of desire. A woman might say she wants a good man who is reliable, caring, and emotionally available. Yet when presented with this type of man, she might be less attracted to him than she would be to a man who is more elusive or less emotionally available. This paradox leaves many men scratching their heads, unable to understand why their well-intentioned actions aren't leading to the deep connection they desire. This discrepancy between what a woman says and what she is actually attracted to has puzzled men for generations. They express a desire to be the ideal, emotionally available partner, and they strive to meet all the requirements set by their partner. They believe that by being supportive, dependable, and understanding, they will win her affection. However, in reality, It often seems like their efforts are in vain, as the woman might pull away emotionally or show more interest in someone who doesn't meet her verbal desires. The heart of this confusion lies in the difference between what a woman consciously expresses and what her instincts are telling her. Schopenhauer's philosophy provides an explanation for this phenomenon. Women, like all humans, are influenced by both culture and nature. While culture may encourage women to express desires for a good man, nature, which operates through biological instincts, is more concerned with qualities like strength, leadership, and emotional stability. In other words, a woman's verbal desires may align with cultural norms, but her biological instincts often push her towards something more primal, a man who exhibits dominance, resilience, and emotional fortitude. The paradox is rooted in the complexity of human nature, where words do not always align with underlying instincts. Understanding this can help men navigate the confusion, recognizing that their value isn't in trying to please through self-sacrifice, but in maintaining their own strength and leadership. Arthur Schopenhauer, the renowned German philosopher, had a unique perspective on human nature, especially regarding relationships and attraction. He believed that human desires, particularly those of women, were shaped by the brutal forces of nature rather than by the more refined cultural values that people often express. According to Schopenhauer, what a woman says she wants is influenced by culture and societal expectations, but what she is truly attracted to is driven by the fundamental forces of nature. Schopenhauer argued that the instincts of nature govern the desires that are necessary for survival and reproduction. In the case of women, these instincts are concerned with the continuation of the species, not necessarily with kindness, patience, or emotional vulnerability. Nature, Schopenhauer believed, has little concern for the qualities that modern culture might celebrate in a partner. Instead, nature focuses on strength, leadership, and the ability to withstand pressure. These traits are essential for survival and the protection of offspring, which is why they are instinctively attractive to women. This perspective challenges the common notion that relationships are built on the expression of emotional support and mutual understanding. Schopenhauer's view suggests that a woman's desires are rooted in deeper, primal instincts that are not always in harmony with the cultural norms she is expected to adhere to. For instance, while a woman might verbalize a preference for a good man who is kind and emotionally open, her biological instincts are more likely to draw her to a man who exhibits assertiveness, control, and the ability to lead in difficult situations. In this light, Schopenhauer saw love and attraction as a complex interplay between nature and culture. The desires women express verbally may be influenced by cultural ideals of romance and partnership, but their natural desires, driven by biology, are much more primal and focused on traits that ensure the survival and well-being of the species. One of the core arguments in understanding the paradox of desire is that women often speak two different languages when it comes to attraction: the language of words and the language of biology. These two languages are not always in harmony, which is why men are often confused by women's desires. What women say they want and what their instincts actually respond to can be completely different. For example, a woman might tell a man that she wants a sweet, reliable, and emotionally open partner. She may emphasize that she values communication and emotional vulnerability in a relationship. While these are important qualities in a partnership, they are not necessarily what her instincts are drawn to. Deep down, her biology is more likely to respond to qualities like strength, dominance, and the ability to maintain emotional control under pressure. These traits, which are often associated with leadership and assertiveness, are rooted in the primal need for survival and protection. Schopenhauer's philosophy explains that nature operates on instinct, not logic. A woman's biological impulses are guided by the need to ensure the continuation of the species. Her instincts may prioritize a man who is strong, resilient, and capable of leading in difficult situations, even if he doesn't align with the ideal of the perfect partner as described by culture. Her words, which express a desire for emotional openness and reliability, are influenced by societal expectations, but her instincts are driven by the need for a mate who can provide security, leadership, and emotional stability. This creates a conflict for many men who often believe that the more they conform to a woman's verbal desires, the more likely they are to attract her. However, the truth is that while being sweet and reliable may meet cultural standards, it does little to stimulate the deep instinctual attraction that women often feel. This disconnect between words and biology is where the confusion lies, and it is a fundamental issue that Schopenhauer's philosophy seeks to address. Understanding that a woman's instincts are driven by biology, not cultural ideals, allows men to shift their approach. Rather than trying to please her through endless emotional openness and self-sacrifice, men should focus on embodying the qualities that stimulate her biological instincts: strength, leadership, emotional control, and the ability to remain grounded under pressure. Schopenhauer's view of love, especially feminine love, is both fascinating and unsettling. He referred to love as an illusion of nature, a concept that turns the romantic notions we have of love on their head. For Schopenhauer, love was not some purely emotional experience that brought two people together for mutual happiness. Instead, he saw it as a biological tool designed to ensure the continuation of the species. According to Schopenhauer, love is not about genuine emotional connection or personal fulfillment, but rather about ensuring reproduction. The emotions and feelings that accompany love, especially feminine love, are simply the brain's way of ensuring that a woman is attracted to a man who possesses the qualities necessary for survival and procreation. These qualities are often not aligned with the social or emotional ideals that we typically associate with love. Romance, in Schopenhauer's view, is often a disguise for the biological imperative that drives humans to mate and reproduce. Women, in particular, are biologically driven to find a partner who can protect them and provide stability for their offspring. The emotional aspects of love are a byproduct of this deeper biological drive, which is why women often say they want a good man, but are instinctively attracted to traits that signal strength, leadership, and resilience. This realization can be difficult for many to accept, but it highlights an important truth about relationships. Much of what we call love is shaped by biological imperatives that are often out of our conscious control. Understanding this can help men better navigate relationships by recognizing that their value is not defined by cultural expectations, but by the deep, instinctual needs that drive attraction. One of the most misunderstood aspects of attraction is vulnerability, especially when it comes to what women expect in a man's emotional openness. Often, when a woman asks for vulnerability, she's not seeking constant access to a man's insecurities or emotional breakdowns. In fact, the oversharing of emotions, or the transformation of a man into a therapist or emotional crutch, can actually lead to a loss of attraction. Schopenhauer's perspective on vulnerability is grounded in the idea that emotional openness is a test, not a request for continuous self-exposure. Women, according to Schopenhauer, want to see if a man can feel deeply and still lead, if he can maintain his groundedness even when faced with overwhelming emotions. It's not about needing constant reassurance or sharing every emotional vulnerability. It's about proving emotional resilience, the ability to remain strong and stable despite difficulties. A man who is too emotionally available to the point of being unstable or too dependent undermines the very qualities that women find attractive. The key is to show emotional depth without losing the ability to lead. A man who can remain rooted in his leadership even during emotionally challenging situations is more appealing than one who becomes consumed by his feelings. This dynamic creates a sense of balance in the relationship, maintaining attraction by showing both emotional intelligence and the strength to manage one's emotions effectively. In relationships, this balance is crucial. A woman does not want a man who is constantly emotionally unavailable, but neither does she want one who becomes a therapist or who pours out his vulnerabilities without any sense of emotional control. The inability to maintain this balance can kill attraction, as the relationship shifts from one of equal emotional depth and stability to one where the man's role becomes one of emotional provider, a position that inherently lacks the magnetism of leadership and control. The concept of polarity, the tension between two contrasting elements in a relationship, is essential for maintaining attraction. One of the most significant factors in the death of attraction is the excessive devotion, comfort, and predictability that many men mistakenly believe are necessary to nurture a relationship. While these qualities are often seen as positive, they can inadvertently kill the very thing that makes a relationship exciting. The polarity between the masculine and feminine energies. When a man becomes overly devoted to pleasing a woman, adjusting his every move to cater to her needs, he loses the edge that makes him attractive. Predictability, while comforting, removes the excitement and mystery that naturally come with a healthy dynamic. Attraction thrives on the tension between independence and dependence, strength and softness, certainty and unpredictability. When a man becomes too predictable, always there, always accommodating, always sacrificing his own needs, he removes the dynamic that draws a woman in. This type of behavior, often referred to as the nice guy syndrome, creates a sense of stagnation in the relationship. The man becomes a source of comfort, but not a source of desire. Without the push and pull of attraction, the relationship loses its spark. The woman no longer feels the tension that comes with polarity, and as a result, she may start to feel disconnected from the man, even though he may be doing everything in his power to please her. In relationships, it's important to maintain an element of mystery, challenge, and emotional distance. Not in a manipulative way, but in a way that allows each partner to retain their individuality, their independence, and their strength. It's this tension that sustains the initial attraction and keeps the relationship dynamic, exciting, and fulfilling. Every woman, according to Schopenhauer's view, contains two selves, a social self and a primitive self. The social self is the part of her that expresses the desires and needs shaped by culture, societal expectations, and the influence of modern relationships. This is the part that verbalizes the good man ideals, a partner who is sweet, reliable, emotionally open, and supportive. However, the primitive self is the part that operates on raw biological instinct. It's driven by deep-seated evolutionary needs, and it is primarily concerned with survival and reproduction. This self is not interested in a man's emotional availability or constant support, but rather in traits such as strength, leadership, and emotional stability. A woman's primitive self is attracted to a man who can lead, who can assert control, and who demonstrates resilience and confidence under pressure. The problem arises when men cater too much to a woman's social self, attempting to fulfill the ideal of the good man as prescribed by modern societal norms. This often leads to a dynamic where the man becomes overly compliant, emotionally available, and predictable, which can actually suffocate the primitive self, the part of her that craves the challenge, the strength, and the leadership that she instinctively desires in a partner. Men who fail to recognize this duality often find themselves in relationships where they feel frustrated or unfulfilled. They may give everything to cater to the woman's social self, believing this will bring them closer, only to find that their efforts fail to spark true attraction. Women, on the other hand, may feel disconnected or dissatisfied because the man they are with doesn't satisfy the deeper instinctual needs of their primitive self. Understanding the two women within, the social self and the primitive self, can help men navigate relationships more effectively. By recognizing that women have deeper instinctual needs that go beyond the cultural expectations they express, men can better balance their efforts and become the kind of partner who attracts a woman on both a cultural and biological level. The idea that attraction is earned through constant effort is a common misconception. Many men believe that the more they try to please a woman, the more likely they are to earn her admiration and affection. However, the reality is that attraction is not something that can be earned through effort alone. It is a natural response to a man's presence, direction, and boundaries, qualities that make him magnetic, even when he is not actively trying to please. Women are drawn to men who exude confidence and strength without needing to seek constant validation. A man who is centered, who has clear boundaries, who is emotionally stable, and who is not dependent on a woman's approval will naturally create admiration. This is because such men embody the very qualities that women are biologically attracted to: strength, resilience, and leadership. Effort in a relationship is important, but it is not the driving force behind attraction. A man who spends his time and energy trying to earn admiration through constant efforts of pleasing or being emotionally available is often seen as predictable and uninspiring. Women respect men who have their own direction in life, who are independent, and who do not need to adjust themselves to fit into someone else's expectations. In a healthy relationship, admiration arises naturally. It comes from a man's ability to remain true to himself, to lead without seeking permission, and to maintain his independence while still being emotionally available when necessary. It's this balance between strength and openness, independence and connection, that creates lasting attraction and admiration. One of the most significant dangers in relationships is the loss of self. When a man molds himself to meet a woman's needs and desires, he often loses the very qualities that made him attractive in the first place. The more he gives of himself, the more he sacrifices his own identity in an attempt to gain her approval or affection. While it may seem like selflessness, this behavior ultimately leads to a loss of the very essence that makes a man desirable. This process of self-sacrifice can be particularly damaging because it erodes the man's backbone, the strength and direction that initially made him magnetic. When a man gives everything to a woman, he becomes mud under her feet. His neediness and dependence on her approval strip him of the authority and independence that made him stand out in the first place. Women, on a deep biological level, are not attracted to weakness or dependence. They are drawn to men who have their own identity, who are grounded in their beliefs and direction in life. A man who loses himself in a relationship, constantly adapting and sacrificing his own desires, becomes a mere shadow of his former self. This loss of self not only diminishes attraction, but also creates an imbalance in the relationship. To maintain attraction, it is crucial that a man never loses sight of who he is. He must remain true to his values, desires, and goals, without becoming overly dependent on a woman's approval. By maintaining his own sovereignty, a man ensures that he remains desirable, grounded, and respected in the eyes of his partner. Reclaiming masculine sovereignty is the key to overcoming the challenges of modern relationships and achieving lasting attraction. Schopenhauer's philosophy suggests that a man must stop trying to be the man a woman tells him to be, and instead become the man who does not need to be told. This is the essence of masculine sovereignty, a man who leads, decides, and lives by his own code, regardless of external expectations. A man who embodies sovereignty does not seek validation from others, including women. He is grounded in his identity and direction in life, and he does not bend his will to please or accommodate those around him. His strength comes from within, not from the approval or acceptance of others. This is the kind of man who commands respect, not through force or control, but through his unwavering sense of self. When a man fully embodies his sovereignty, he becomes the kind of person who draws others to him, particularly women. Women sense this sovereignty and instinctively respect it. They are drawn to the mystery and strength that such a man possesses. This respect and admiration are the foundation of a healthy, dynamic relationship where both partners maintain their individuality and autonomy. Schopenhauer believed that relationships should be grounded in nature's primal laws, where attraction is not about pleasing or accommodating, but about embodying the traits that create true desire: strength, leadership, emotional control, and unwavering confidence. A man who leads with these qualities does not need to try to be the man his partner wants. He simply becomes the man she instinctively desires. To summarize, the key to understanding the complexities of attraction lies in recognizing the difference between what women say they want and what their instincts are drawn to. Schopenhauer's philosophy provides a framework for understanding the paradox of desire, highlighting the disconnect between cultural expectations and biological impulses. Men must stop trying to please through self-sacrifice and instead focus on embodying the qualities that women are biologically drawn to: strength, leadership, emotional stability, and independence. When a man is true to himself, grounded in his own identity and direction, he becomes the man who sparks genuine attraction and respect. Reclaiming masculine sovereignty is not about dominating or controlling, but about being grounded in one's own identity and living authentically. A man who leads, decides, and remains true to himself will naturally command the admiration and attraction of those around him, including women.